Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive into the fascinating currents of history and myth. You probably know Poseidon as the mighty god of the sea, trident in hand, commanding waves and perhaps causing a shipwreck or two.
Mm-hmm. The classic image.
Exactly. But what if we told you his story is far deeper, more ancient, and surprisingly earth-shaking than you ever imagined? What if the vast blue sea wasn't even his very first domain?
That tends to surprise people, doesn't it?
It really does. Before we plunge into the true depths of Poseidon's myths and history, just a quick note. If you find yourself enjoying this deep dive, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts or questions, and subscribe to the channel for more insights like this.
Yeah, your engagement really does help us keep bringing these incredible, sometimes pretty surprising stories to life. It makes a big difference.
It really does. So today we're embarking on a comprehensive deep dive into the extensive sources about Poseidon, the figure often synonymous with the ocean. We've gathered everything from, the foundational ancient texts like Hesiod's Theogony.
A cornerstone, really.
Absolutely. Right up to the cryptic insights of recent archaeological findings, particularly those from the Linear B tablets of the Mycenaean civilization. Our mission today is to unpack the most important nuggets of knowledge and surprising facts, helping you truly understand this complex deity.
That's right. We're going to move beyond that popular image you might hold of Poseidon and gently peel back the layers of his story. We'll explore his complex origins, his surprising earliest associations that might genuinely shift your perspective,
Uh-huh.
his formidable powers and defining symbols, the intricate dynamics of his Olympian family, which is always interesting.
Yeah, full of drama.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the absolutely pivotal roles he played in some of the most epic conflicts of Greek mythology.
Okay.
We'll also examine how deeply his worship permeated ancient Greek life, extending far beyond just the coastal regions, which I think will reveal quite a lot about their culture and, well, their anxieties too.
I think you'll find some genuine aha moments waiting as we connect seemingly disparate aspects of his identity. Our goal is to give you a fresh perspective, a shortcut to truly understanding one of Olympus's most powerful and often volatile deities. So let's begin to unearth this ancient story.
Let's go.
We begin our journey at the very beginning, tracing Poseidon's genesis and understanding his place within the vast cosmic order of Greek mythology. It's important to remember that Greek mythology is far more than just a collection of, fanciful tales. It's a cornerstone of Western civilization.
Absolutely. These narratives served as profound explanations for the natural world, the complexities of human experience, and the very structures of their societies. They weren't just stories for entertainment. They were like explanations for existence itself.
Right. They were trying to make sense of it all.
Exactly. And these stories weren't born overnight, fully formed. They originated from centuries of oral tradition, passed down through generations, evolving and adapting as Greek civilization itself changed before finally being committed to writing.
And the earliest roots, they might go back even further.
Yeah, in fact, the earliest roots of many of these mythological themes and figures, including some aspects of Poseidon, are believed to have evolved from the sophisticated Minoan civilization on the island of Crete. That flourished from approximately 3000 to 1100 BCE.
Wow, that's old.
It really is.
Yeah.
This suggests a deep pre-Hellenic lineage for many of the stories and deities we'll discuss, hinting at connections much older than the classical Greek period we usually think of.
So when we talk about committing these stories to writing, Hesiod's Theogony, composed around 700 BCE, is an absolutely crucial source, isn't it?
Oh, fundamental. Think of it as the ancient Greeks' definitive cosmic family tree, kind of.
Yeah.
This epic poem meticulously details the birth of the deities, their intricate relationships, and the eventual establishment of the Olympian cosmic order. It's a systematic effort that took previously disparate folk tales and ideological myths, those stories that explain the origin of things.
Like why the seasons change or where fire came from, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And it wove them into a foundational literary framework for comprehending the entire Greek pantheon. It sort of organized everything.
And his other work, Works and Days, does that fit in?
It does. Works and Days further enriches our understanding. It integrates these divine narratives with everyday stuff like agricultural practices and even profound moral discussions, such as the fundamental concept of justice.
So not just who's related to whom, but how the gods impact daily life and ethics?
Precisely. The comprehensive nature of Hesiod's accounts means they were instrumental in shaping how the ancient Greeks, and indeed all subsequent generations, understood the genesis and initial roles of their gods, including the powerful Poseidon. This literary contribution provided a standardized, influential narrative for the divine order, profoundly impacting how we understand Poseidon's genesis and his initial standing within that broader mythological framework.
Okay, so how does Poseidon himself enter this world according to Hesiod? His origins are intrinsically tied to those primordial struggles for cosmic supremacy, right?
Absolutely. The story goes that he was born to Cronus, the youngest of the 12 Titans, and Rhea, a prominent fertility goddess. Now, Cronus, famously, was terrified by a prophecy.
One about his kids overthrowing him.
That's the one, a prophecy that one of his own children would one day overthrow him. His solution. He swallowed each of his offspring as they were born.
Which is just horrifying.
It really is. Poseidon, along with his siblings Hestia, Demeter, Hera, and Hades, all endured this traumatic fate, trapped inside their father. Grim beginnings.
So how did they get out?
Well, the salvation for these swallowed deities came through their youngest brother, Zeus. Rhea, in a desperate act to save her last child, cleverly substituted a stone wrapped in swaddling clothes for the infant Zeus.
The old switcheroo.
Pretty much. Cronus unknowingly swallowed the stone whole. Zeus, upon reaching adulthood, then forced Cronus through various means, depending on the myth, to regurgitate all his elder siblings, including Poseidon, finally freeing them from their father's tyrannical grasp.
It's a rather dramatic family reunion, I'd say.
You could definitely call it that.
And what's fascinating here is that despite this widely accepted narrative, Greek mythology, being so fluid and adaptable, actually offers alternative accounts of Poseidon's early life. It wasn't always set in stone, so to speak.
No, not at all. Some traditions suggest that Rhea actually managed to hide the young Poseidon from Cronus completely.
How?
Well, one story says she concealed him in a flock of lambs in Arcadia, which is a rugged, mountainous region fitting for hiding someone, I suppose. Another version has her sending him off to the island of Rhodes.
Rhodes? Who raised him there?
He was supposedly raised by Oceanus' daughter, Kypheria, and the Telchines, who were these ancient, mythical metalworkers and magicians. Adds a bit of mystique.
It does. But there's another one, isn't there? The one involving a horse.
Ah, yes. And here's where it gets really interesting, hinting at that deep, ancient connection we'll definitely explore further. Some accounts propose an intriguing foal substitution narrative.
So instead of a stone like Zeus, it was a foal.
Exactly. This version says Rhea substituted a foal for the infant Poseidon for Cronus to swallow. What's crucial about this detail is how it foreshadows and reinforces his profound, ancient connection to horses.
Ah, okay, so it suggests that Link was there from the very start.
Precisely. It suggests that this association was integral to his identity from his very genesis, even if it diverged from the more common Zeus intervention story. It implies the horse connection was so fundamental that it was woven into his very origin story, hinting at a much deeper, possibly earlier significance than we might assume. It's a subtle but really powerful clue about his core nature.
That makes sense. So after this dramatic beginning and following the epic conflict known as the Titanomachy, where the Olympian gods, led by Zeus, finally overthrew the Titans, what happened next?
Well, the victorious brothers, Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon, came together to divide the cosmos. They did it by lot.
Like drawing straws for the universe.
Essentially, yes. Imagine a cosmic lottery for ultimate power. Zeus was allotted the dominion over the sky, becoming the undisputed king of the gods. Hades received the shadowy realm of the underworld.
And Poseidon.
And Poseidon, by fate, became the lord of the vast, boundless sea. It's important to note, though, that the earth itself and Mount Olympus, the abode of the gods, were designated as common ground, belonging to all three.
So they had shared custody of Earth and Olympus.
You could say that. This division wasn't just symbolic, it established the fundamental cosmic order that would govern the Greek mythological world. It laid the groundwork for all future power dynamics, alliances, and, as we'll certainly see, numerous rivalries. It really set the stage for everything that followed.
Now here's where the narrative takes a surprising turn, challenging our common understanding of Poseidon. While we typically envision him as the mighty sea god, trident in hand.
Right, the standard image.
There's this fascinating and deeply ancient aspect of his identity, his role as the Earthshaker, a deity whose power was intrinsically linked to the very land beneath our feet. This feels like one of those aha moments for many people.
It often is, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it reveals a lineage far more complex than just ocean dominion. His story has layers.
So where does the evidence for this early Earth connection come from?
Indeed. The earliest evidence for Poseidon's veneration takes us back to the Bronze Age, to the powerful Mycenaean civilization, which thrived between approximately 1750 and 1050 BCE,
Okay, so pre-classical Greece.
way before. This early presence is confirmed by Linear B inscriptions, that's an ancient writing system used by the Mycenaeans, discovered at pivotal archaeological sites like Pylos in the Peloponnese and Knossos on Crete.
What were these inscriptions on?
They were mostly on clay tablets, primarily administrative records, things like inventories, but they also contained invaluable lists of religious offerings that explicitly name various deities, including Poseidon. This confirms his importance as an early deity within the Mycenaean pantheon.
And here's the unexpected twist from those tablets. At Pylos, he seems to hold a prominent position, but associated with what?
Associated with the underworld, often referred to as the Lord of the Underworld.
Wow, not the sea at all.
Not explicitly, no. He even held the title Anax, meaning king or protector, specifically related to palace protection. And critically, even back then, he was known by the epithet Anasion,
Which means...
earthshaker.
Yeah.
So that title is ancient. In Crete, surprisingly, he was associated with Eileithyia, the goddess of childbirth. Kind of unexpected pairings.
So these Mycenaean titles and associations, they carry over.
They absolutely do. They were later adopted into classical Greek mythology, often retaining similar meanings. Homer, for instance, uses epithets like Anosogaios for the earthshaker. It shows a direct lineage of names and powers stretching back centuries.
What's truly fascinating here, then, is the curious lack of a strong, explicit connection between Poseidon and the sea during this Mycenaean period.
It's really striking. Despite Mycenaean culture being heavily dependent on maritime activities, they were traders, sailors. There's insufficient evidence in these early records to suggest Poseidon was primarily a sea god back then.
So the god we automatically link with the ocean might not have started there.
Exactly. This isn't just a historical footnote. It's a profound insight that really reshapes our understanding of Poseidon. Imagine, the god we associate with vast oceans actually seems to begin as a deity connected to the land, to earthquakes, maybe the underworld, and as we'll see, horses.
It implies the myths adapted as the Greeks themselves became more sea-focused.
Precisely. It tells us that as Greek civilization evolved and became a major maritime power, their very gods adapted to reflect their new realities. It's like a mirror of their journey, showing how foundational beliefs can shift over centuries. His earthshaker and horse god aspects appear to be older, more fundamental connections.
Suggesting a terrestrial or chthonic origin. What does chthonic mean exactly?
Right, chthonic. It means related to the earth, especially the underworld, and its powerful, often hidden forces like fertility, death, earthquakes. So this connection predates or coexisted with his later marine identity. The shift from an underworld or earth-focused deity to the supreme ruler of the sea was a significant development that occurred over centuries. It wasn't instantaneous.
This evolution makes so much more sense when you then look at Poseidon as a horse god, known as Hippios. That feels connected to the land, too.
Absolutely connected. His link to horses is ancient and deeply embedded in Greek myth and cult, definitely predating or coexisting with his sea deity role. The title Hippios, meaning of horses or horsemen, appears frequently in early cults and myths, underscoring this profound association.
And there's a theory he was brought to Greece with the first horses.
Yeah, it's believed that Poseidon, in this horse god aspect, was introduced to Greece by the earliest Hellenes, who also brought the first horses to the region, perhaps around the 2nd millennium BCE. So his tie to horses could be as old as the horse itself in Greece.
And myths credit him with creating the first horse.
Frequently. Often by striking a rock with his trident that comes up a few times. For instance, the Thessalian myth recounts how he created the magnificent horse Skyphios in this exact manner.
Wow. Not just creating them, but taming them, too.
Yes, beyond creation, he was also revered for teaching humanity the art of taming horses, further solidifying his role as a patron of equestrianism. This is a deep connection, woven into his very essence, suggesting his mastery over the raw, untamed power of nature, whether on land or eventually in the waves.
And that enduring epithet, Earthshaker, or, Sikthon and Osigeias, Sikthon Geochas, that's one of his most significant titles, right? Directly reflecting his power over seismic activity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this aspect of his divinity deeply connected him to dry land. It's telling that many of his oldest places of worship in Greece were located inland, often centered around pools, streams, or other freshwater sources, not necessarily by the coast.
Which seems counterintuitive for a sea god.
Exactly. And in this terrestrial role, he was even worshipped as Asphalios, the stabilizer.
Right, the stabilizer, but he causes earthquakes.
I know, right? It's a fascinating contradiction. A deity invoked for protection from earthquakes, the very thing he wields power over. It shows the complexity they hoped he could prevent them, as well as cause them.
And his trident wasn't just for shaking things up?
No, it could also create springs, supposedly. With a strike, he could bring forth fresh water, further linking him to the Earth's hidden waters, not just the salty sea.
Okay, so how do horses, earthquakes, and inland waters all connect under Poseidon?
Well, it beautifully connects through the ancient concept of the Earth's movements and the liquid element hidden within it. Think about underground rivers, springs.
Right.
Ancient Greek folklore actually believed horses could create springs just with their hooves striking the ground. And the Earthshaker epithet directly links him to seismic activity, those deep earth tremors.
So his power wasn't just over the visible sea, but maybe over all water, including underground sources and the Earth's movements.
That seems to be the implication. Power over the fundamental, often hidden forces within the Earth itself, subterranean liquids, tremors. This comprehensive control over natural forces, encompassing both the solid Earth and its internal waters, provides a much more complete understanding of his ancient authority. It extended far beyond just the maritime realm. He truly was a master of the very ground beneath their feet and the waters within it.
We see this comprehensive control even more clearly in some of the more primitive regional myths, don't we? Like from Boeotia and Arcadia.
Yes, definitely. In those areas, Poseidon's conic, that Earth-underworld connection, and his animalistic associations are particularly pronounced.
How so?
Well, in these regional myths, Poseidon actually appears in the form of a horse.
Literally transforms into a horse.
Yes. And in that form, he engages in unions with earth goddesses, like Erinyes or Demeter.
His sister Demeter, as horses.
That's the story. And these unions produced notable offspring. The fabulous divine horse, Arion, known for its incredible speed.
Right, the super fast horse.
And an unnamed daughter, Despoina, which is actually another name for Persephone, the queen of the underworld. So very potent connections there.
It's quite an image, a god transforming into a horse for
Wow,
those purposes.
it is. And within these myths, the horse clearly represents a divine spirit, a numen, and it's intrinsically linked to the liquid element springs, water in the underworld.
And this connects to wider folklore.
It does. Greek folklore further reinforces this connection, associating the horse with the underworld and attributing to it the ability to create springs. This aligns with broader European folklore, where water spirits often appear in the shape of a horse or a bull. We even see that in Greece with the river god Aeschylus, who's sometimes represented as a bull or a man-bull.
These animal shapes, the theriomorphic forms, were they common?
They seem to be a local characteristic in Arcadia, often associated with older religious practices, and Zoanna, those ancient wooden cult statues. It suggests a very ancient, maybe even pre-Greek, primal form of worship.
And there might be a historical link, too.
Possibly. The scholar Walter Burkert suggests that the Hunnic cult of Poseidon as a horse god may even be connected to the introduction of the horse and the war chariot from Anatolia to Greece around 1600 BCE. So a historical event possibly influencing the mythology.
So these animal forms, like Poseidon as a horse mating with Demeter, it's like a blending of old and new beliefs.
Exactly. It suggests a blending of indigenous, possibly pre-Hellenic, chthonic, and fertility cults with the incoming Hellenic deities. This reflects what scholars call a syncretic process, essentially, how different religious traditions and beliefs merge together over time.
So older local earth god worship gets absorbed by the incoming worship of Poseidon.
That's the idea, creating a richer, more complex deity. It highlights that Greek mythology wasn't a singular monolithic system, but rather a fluid tradition that absorbed and adapted local traditions and beliefs. This deep blending provides a nuanced understanding of his multifaceted and ancient identity, showing how a god's story can grow and change over millennia. It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. Having traced Poseidon back to these terrestrial origins, it's fascinating to see how those deep roots still manifest in the iconic symbols we know him by today. His power, you'll find, is truly woven into these defining emblems, bridging his shifting domains.
Right, the symbols carry that history.
And the trident, of course, is his most recognizable and primary symbol. It serves as both his defining attribute and his formidable weapon. This three-pronged spear is not merely a tool, it's an embodiment of his immense power.
And its divine origin is crucial, isn't it? It wasn't just something he picked up.
No, definitely not.
It was forged by the Cyclops, specifically for Poseidon during the Titanomachy, that epic war between the Olympian gods and the Titans. This origin story immediately underscores the Trident's fundamental importance in the establishment of the Olympian order and Poseidon's pivotal role within it. It's a weapon of cosmic significance, you could say.
And the trident grants him a vast array of powers, not just over the sea.
Oh, absolutely. With it, he commands absolute dominion over all waters. He can stir the oceans into a frenzy, create colossal waves, or calm the most tumultuous seas at will. He guides or hinders ships, summons sea
He
creatures.
even parts the waters, apparently.
Right. But beyond the sea, and this links back to his origins, a powerful strike of his trident against the ground can trigger devastating earthquakes. Anything from minor tremors to catastrophic quakes. That's where Earthshaker really comes from.
But it's not all destruction, right? You mentioned springs earlier.
Exactly. The trident also possesses the power to create life-giving springs with a single strike, linking him to vital freshwater sources on land, sustaining life. So it's creation and destruction.
And weather control.
And weather control, yes. He can manipulate weather, conjure powerful storms, whip up hurricanes, or disperse dense fog. This control made him a deity both feared and revered by ancient mariners whose lives absolutely depended on his whims.
Makes sense. And it was a weapon, too.
Oh, a formidable weapon in conflicts. During the Gigantomachy, the war against the giants, he famously used it to break off a fragment of the island of Kos and hurl it upon the giant Polybos, burying him beneath it. Talk about power.
So the symbolism of the trident goes beyond just, well, being pointy.
Definitely. It reaches into naval power. Even in modern times, it's widely adopted as a symbol of naval power in various cultures, even today.
I've seen that. And the Romans had ideas about the three prongs.
Yeah, the Roman scholar Maurus Servius Honoratus suggested its three prongs represent either the sea as the third part of the world, or maybe the three types of waters: seas, streams, and rivers. It's an attempt to rationalize the symbol.
So ultimately, the trident is the physical embodiment of Poseidon's core powers.
I think that's a good way to put it. It links his diverse domains, sea, earth, and weather, into a single formidable instrument. It signifies divine authority and cosmic balance, serving as the nexus through which all his major powers manifest. It connects everything back together.
Okay, then there's the horse. Another profoundly significant symbol for Poseidon, reflecting that ancient role as its creator and his deep association with equestrian activities.
Right, the hippios aspect again. He is frequently depicted riding a chariot drawn by 2 or 4 powerful horses, or sometimes by hippocampi.
Those are the horsefish creatures.
Exactly, those mythical creatures that are part horse and part fish, perfect for gliding across the waves. Myths consistently credit him with the creation of the first horse, presenting this act either as a divine gift to humanity or as part of a contest, like that Thessalian myth of Scythius we mentioned.
And his epithet hippios just reinforces that connection.
Directly, it means horsemen or of horses, and it directly attests to this close association.
So, coupled with his Earthshaker epithet, the horse highlights a kind of duality in his power.
I think so, yeah. It encompasses both the fluid, unpredictable force of the sea and the solid yet dynamic power of the land. And remember, folklore connects the horse to springs and the underworld, linking it back to those liquid and chthonic elements that are so central to his early identity.
So the horse, much like the trident, sort of unifies his diverse domains, representing primal strength across water and land.
Exactly. It represents that primal, untamable strength across both aquatic and terrestrial realms. It's a powerful symbol of his multifaceted control.
Were there other animals sacred to him?
Yes. Beyond these 2 major ones, Poseidon is associated with other significant animals. The dolphin, for instance, is intimately connected with him.
Dolphins often appear with him in art, right?
They do frequently in his iconography.
Yeah.
They symbolize his dominion over the sea and, notably, his more benevolent side as a protector of seafarers. There's even a lovely myth where the dolphin Delphius persuaded Poseidon's consort, Amphitrite, to return to him after she fled.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and as a reward, Poseidon supposedly placed the dolphin among the stars as a constellation.
That's nice. What about bulls?
The bull is also sacred to Poseidon, signifying both fertility and destructive power. Think of the raw strength of a bull. And remember that European folklore often depicts water spirits in the shape of a horse or a bull.
Yeah, connecting back to that.
Right. It aligns with Poseidon's domain over both land and water, much like the Greek river god Achelous, who is represented as a bull or a man-bull.
And some myths even say he created the horse from sea foam.
Yes, some versions do, reinforcing his generative power directly from his marine domain. It connects the horse back to the sea that way. And in ancient Greek art, he's typically depicted as, well, how you might expect. Mature, powerfully built, bearded god, often exuding immense strength and authority, frequently shown traversing the waves in his chariot.
So the range of sacred animals, dolphin, horse, bull, they reflect different parts of his power.
Beautifully, yes. His protective maritime role with the dolphin, his terrestrial strength and fertility with the bull, the horse linking land, sea, and underworld, and those chthonic elements. This multifaceted symbolism reveals a deity whose influence permeated various facets of the ancient Greek natural world and human experience. He encompassed both the nurturing and destructive capacities of nature. He really embodied the raw, untamed forces that shaped their world.
And finally, his epithets. You mentioned a few, but there are many, right? Like different titles or
And
nicknames.
loads of them. They're like a window into how varied his worship was and how different communities emphasize various aspects of his power. Of course, we have all those Earthshaker titles like Enosikthon and Galoches, but what really stands out to me are the contrasting ones.
Like Asphalios, the stabilizer.
Exactly. Asphalios, the stabilizer, protecting from earthquakes, the very thing he causes. It's brilliant. And then you have the more personal ones, like Kianakides, dark-haired, or even the ones tied to his animals, like Tavreos for his bull connection.
Hippios for horses, Pelagios for the sea.
Right. It shows just how many roles he played and how many ways people tried to understand and, crucially, appease him across different communities depending on their needs. He was Epactio, protector of merchants, Heliconios, linked to Mount Helicon, Petreios, of the rock. The list goes on.
So this extensive list reveals the breadth of his perceived powers, but also how his worship changed over time and varied by region.
Precisely. It shows the historical evolution and regional variations. The persistence of Earthshaker from Mycenaean times, evidenced by linear B tablets alongside later sea-related titles, demonstrates how his identity accumulated layers over centuries. His divine persona wasn't fixed. It grew and changed right alongside Greek civilization.
So local cults would emphasize different aspects.
Yeah, based on their environment, their economy, their specific needs. A farming community inland might focus on Hippios or Phthalmius, nourisher of plants, while a port city would emphasize Pelagios of the sea or Asphalios for port stability. It provides a truly nuanced understanding of his multifaceted persona. It's a remarkable tapestry of identity woven over millennia.
Okay, moving beyond his domains and symbols, let's dive into Poseidon's extensive family tree, which, like most Greek god families, sounds pretty complicated.
Oh, understatement of the year. His relationships, whether with his Olympian siblings or his numerous consorts and other partners, frequently shaped the course of mythological events and profoundly influenced the destinies of heroes and monsters alike.
So his immediate lineage places him right at the heart of the Olympian pantheon, doesn't it? Son of Cronus and Rhea.
Exactly. A central figure in that generational conflict that defined the early cosmos. He was one of the 6 Olympian siblings: Zeus, the sky god; Hades, ruler of the underworld; Hera, queen of the gods; Hestia, goddess of the hearth; and Demeter, goddess of agriculture. These siblings formed the core of the new divine order after the Titans.
And following the Titanomachy, the 3 brothers, Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon, divided the cosmos by lot. We covered that. Zeus got the sky, Hades the underworld, Poseidon the sea. Earth and Olympus shared. But you hinted it wasn't always harmonious.
Far from it. While it established order, it absolutely laid the groundwork for future power struggles. Zeus, as the king, certainly had the most dominant realm, but Poseidon, controlling the vast, unpredictable sea, held immense, almost rivaling power. It was less about absolute harmony and more about a fragile balance of immense forces.
So how were his relationships with his siblings? Let's start with Zeus.
Complex, definitely complex. With Zeus, his brother, they shared that common heritage and a foundational role in establishing the Olympian order. However, Poseidon frequently harbored jealousy towards Zeus's supreme position as king of the gods.
He didn't like being number 2 or maybe number 3 after Hades in a way.
Pretty much. This rivalry sometimes escalated into open defiance, with myths recounting Poseidon's participation in at least 2 rebellions against Zeus.
Real. He tried to overthrow Zeus.
He was involved, yeah. But despite these tensions, they also collaborated significantly, most notably during the Titanomachy, where their combined might was crucial in defeating the Titans.
And during the Trojan War.
Their relationship during the Trojan War also exhibited this duality. While Poseidon generally supported the Greeks, he sometimes defied Zeus's commands, which shows the volatile internal dynamics of the Olympian family.
So the hierarchy wasn't absolute. It was dynamic, influenced by sibling rivalries, personal feelings.
Exactly. Personal grievances, strategic alliances, and these divine politics directly impacted events in the mortal world. Their personal lives were very public and very consequential.
What about Hades, his other brother?
His relationship with Hades was primarily defined by their shared experience of being swallowed by Cronus and their subsequent division of the cosmic realms. Hades' governance of the underworld, complemented Poseidon's rule over the seas, establishing a balance of power over the unseen and fluid aspects of the world. Less direct conflict there, it seems.
And his sisters. Hera, for instance.
With Hera, well, she was often at odds with Zeus herself, so she sometimes found common cause with Poseidon. In Homer's Iliad, for instance, Hera and Poseidon collaborated to deceive Zeus and provide crucial aid to the Achaeans during the Trojan War.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of thing.
Kind of, yeah. And Hera, like Poseidon, was also swallowed by Cronus, so perhaps there was a shared bond through that early trauma as well.
And then there's Demeter. We touched on this with the horse transformation.
Right. Poseidon's persistent pursuit of his sister Demeter is a notable myth. It really underscores his primal power and connection to nature, but it's also quite disturbing.
The story is she turned into a mare to escape him.
Yes, attempting to evade his advances, she transformed herself into a mare. However, Poseidon responded by transforming into a stallion, ultimately mating with her.
And the children were Arion and Despoina.
Exactly. The divine horse Arion, known for its incredible speed, and the goddess Despoina, who is another name for Persephone. It further links Poseidon to fertility and those chthonic domains, and again, drives home his connection to the horse in the most fundamental, if unsettling way.
Okay, so let's talk about his wife, Amphitrite. Who was she?
Amphitrite was Poseidon's primary consort and wife. She was a sea nymph, sometimes described as an oceanid, sometimes a nereid, often vaguely personified as the sea itself, perhaps the calmer aspects of it.
So their union symbolized the sea's different moods?
Something like that. The harmonization of the sea's mighty and tranquil aspects, representing a balance between Poseidon's often volatile nature and the ocean's more serene qualities.
Did they have children?
Yes, they had multiple offspring. Most notably Triton, depicted as a merman who serves as the messenger of the sea, often heralding his father's will with the sound of a conch shell. They also had a daughter named Pithesichime, and some sources suggest Rhodos as another daughter.
Was Amphitrite just a passive figure?
Not always. She was sometimes portrayed with very human-like emotions, particularly jealousy. One myth recounts her transforming the beautiful nymph Scylla into a monstrous sea creature.
Scylla, the monster Odysseus encounters.
That's the one. Transformed because Poseidon had affections for her. This adds a layer of human-like emotion to the divine realm, reflecting the complexities of relationships even among gods, and providing, etiological explanations for monstrous forms. Amphitrite represents the more serene aspects of the sea, contrasting with Poseidon's volatility, but her jealousy adds dramatic depth. It's a very human story played out on a divine scale.
And like his brother Zeus, Poseidon wasn't exactly faithful, was he?
No, not remotely. He was known for his numerous extramarital affairs with goddesses, nymphs, and mortal women, which often resulted in a vast and diverse progeny.
And these weren't always consensual relationships.
Many of these unions, as recorded in the myths, unfortunately involved elements of sexual violence or coercion. It paints a picture of divine power asserted over will, which is a difficult aspect of these stories.
But these relationships profoundly shaped the mythological landscape.
Immensely. They gave rise to heroes, monsters, and entire royal lineages. His actions had huge consequences.
Can you give some key examples of his diverse offspring? They really highlight his influence, don't they?
Absolutely. Take Medusa, for instance. Originally a mortal woman, later transformed into the Gorgon we know.
By Athena, wasn't it? After Poseidon violated her in Athena's temple.
That's the most common version, yes. A terrible consequence. And from that union with Poseidon came Pegasus, the magnificent winged horse, and Chrysaor, famously born from Medusa's neck after her transformation.
Wow. We mentioned Demeter earlier, resulting in Arion the divine horse and Despoina Persephone. Who else?
With Tyro, a Thessalian princess, he fathered twin sons, Peleus and Neleus, who became divine ancestors of powerful royal families. This occurred after Poseidon ravished Tyro in the form of the river Enipeus, highlighting his ability to transform and assert his will.
And Polyphemus, the Cyclops.
From Tosa, a sea nymph, came Polyphemus, the infamous one-eyed Cyclops. His blinding by Odysseus, of course, incurred Poseidon's profound, decades-long wrath, which is central to the Odyssey.
Uriel, daughter of Minos. She bore him Orion.
That's right. Orion, the handsome giant hunter, whom Poseidon granted the extraordinary ability to walk on water. A unique gift.
There's Aethra, a mortal woman who is rumored to be the mother of the hero Theseus. How does that work?
Yeah, linking Poseidon directly to Athens' foundational myths, despite his rivalry with Athena, the story goes Aethra might have slept with both the mortal king Aegis and Poseidon on the same night. So Theseus had potentially dual paternity.
Gives him options for divine help, I guess. And the story of Canis, that one's quite striking.
It is. Canis, a mortal woman who, after being raped by Poseidon, was granted her wish to be transformed into an invulnerable male warrior, Caeneus. It explores profound themes of identity, trauma, and gender in a way that feels very modern, actually.
And even the Elode, the giant twins who challenged the gods.
Otis and Ephialtes, yes.
Yeah.
They were sons of Poseidon and the mortal Iphimedia. So you see this pattern. Poseidon's numerous and often coercive liaisons, particularly those involving transformations or resulting in monstrous or powerful offspring, reveal a recurring theme of divine power asserted over will.
Often with significant and far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely, for both divine and mortal realms. These myths collectively portray Poseidon's relentless pursuit of desires and the profound impact of his actions on the mythological landscape. His union-shaped genealogies create both heroes and formidable monsters, and frequently alter the destinies of individuals and entire communities. It really demonstrates how God's personal actions, driven by desire, anger, or whim, have cosmic and historical ripple effects that extend far beyond the immediate interaction.
Poseidon's influence extended deeply into the grand narratives of Greek mythology, didn't it? His actions, driven by personal grievances, alliances, and divine politics, profoundly shaped the destinies of mortals and the outcomes of epic conflicts. Let's start with the Homeric epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. How does he feature there?
He plays a significant and often quite volatile role in both. In the Iliad, which recounts the events of the Trojan War, Poseidon generally supports the Greeks, the Achaeans, against the Trojans.
Why was he anti-Trojan?
Well, his animosity towards Troy stems from a significant past grievance. King Laomedon of Troy had famously refused to pay Poseidon and Apollo for building the mighty walls of the city, a betrayal that ignited the gods' enduring wrath. He held a grudge.
The wall-building incident. We'll come back to that.
Right. Plus, Poseidon resented Zeus's favoritism towards the Trojans, which often put him at odds with the king of the gods. So he's a powerful force, often driven by personal score settling.
How did he intervene in the war?
Actively. He frequently disguised himself as a human, like the prophet Calchas, to encourage and inspire Greek heroes like the great Ajaxes. He would imbue Greek warriors with immense strength, rallying them when their morale faltered, pushing them forward in battle.
Homer describes his power as pretty immense.
Oh, incredible. Homer describes him as capable of shaking the very earth and making Hades, the lord of the underworld, tremble in fear when Poseidon prepared for battle. In one notable confrontation, Poseidon faced Apollo, one of Troy's staunchest divine supporters, and Apollo, recognizing Poseidon's overwhelming power, wisely retreated, just backed down.
And he worked with Hera against Zeus.
Yes, he famously collaborated with Hera to deceive Zeus, putting him to sleep on Mount Ida, thereby creating an opportunity to aid the Achaeans without Zeus's immediate intervention. Throughout the Iliad, Poseidon is depicted with a fierce temper and immense wrath. His control over the waters mirrors his capacity to cause treacherous journeys for those who incurred his displeasure.
Okay, but then in the Odyssey, his role flips completely, doesn't it?
It really does. In stark contrast to his role in the Iliad, Poseidon serves as the primary divine antagonist in Homer's Odyssey.
Because of Polyphemus.
Exactly. His profound fury is directed at the Greek hero Odysseus, who had blinded Poseidon's son, the monstrous cyclops Polyphemus. This single act of vengeance drives much of Odysseus' prolonged suffering.
How did he hinder Odysseus?
Relentlessly. He hinders Odysseus' journey home from Troy to Ithaca, causing devastating storms and shipwrecks that prolong the hero's voyage for 10 arduous years. It's a constant battle against the sea, orchestrated by Poseidon.
But he couldn't actually kill Odysseus.
No, despite his immense wrath and direct interventions, Poseidon cannot ultimately kill Odysseus, as it is the hero's destiny to return home, a fate ordained by the other gods, particularly Athena. So Poseidon can make his life hell, but not end it.
And there's irony with the Phaeacians.
Huge irony. Poseidon is actually the patron deity of the seafaring Phaeacians, who ultimately provide crucial assistance in returning Odysseus to Ithaca. But Poseidon, angered by their aid to his enemy, later punishes the Phaeacians by turning their ship to stone as it returns to port. A stark warning against helping those who incur divine wrath, even from their own patron.
So Poseidon's portrayal in the Homeric epics, it reveals a complex deity driven by personal grievances, divine politics, whose actions profoundly shape mortal destinies.
Absolutely. His support for the Greeks in the Iliad and his relentless persecution of Odysseus in the Odyssey highlight the often vengeful nature of divine intervention. Divine morality in Greek mythology, you have to remember, is not aligned with our concepts of good and evil. It's more about honor, respect, perceived slights, and personal satisfaction.
So his involvement is consistently driven by personal motivations, with direct ripple effects on mortal lives.
Exactly. It's a vivid reminder that the gods were often very much like powerful, unpredictable, and sometimes petty humans, just on a cosmic scale.
Okay, moving on from Homer. One of the most famous myths involving Poseidon is his rivalry with Athena for the patronage of Athens. The contest, right?
Yes, the contest for Athens, or the name-giving of Athens, an intense rivalry. King Cecrops, who was supposedly half human and half snake, faced the crucial task of selecting a patron deity for his burgeoning city-state. Both Poseidon and Athena expressed keen interest in this honor.
And Zeus stepped in to prevent a fight.
Right. Fearing their disagreement would escalate into a destructive conflict, Zeus intervened, proposing a contest. Each god would offer a gift of value to the city, with Cecrops, or sometimes the whole citizenry, acting as the judge.
So Poseidon went first. What did he offer?
Poseidon, eager to secure the patronage, made his offering first. With a powerful strike of his mighty trident upon the Acropolis rock, he brought forth a spring of water.
Water seems like a good gift for a city.
You'd think so. It symbolized his offer of naval power and control over the seas, promising protection from drought. However, the water, like the oceans Poseidon commanded, was salty and undrinkable, so limited practical use.
Ah, not so useful then. What about the horse version?
Some ancient sources do say his gift was the first horse, symbolizing military might and speed. But the saltwater spring is more common.
Okay, so then it was Athena's turn. What did she offer?
She planted an olive branch into the ground with her spear, and miraculously, it grew into a fully grown olive tree. This gift symbolized peace, prosperity, and agricultural abundance, providing fruit, oil, timber, and firewood, all practical, everyday necessities.
Well, who won?
Cecrops and the Athenians deemed Athena's gift far superior due to its practical benefits and the long-term prosperity it represented. The olive tree was just more useful day to day. Consequently, Athena was proclaimed the winner, and the city was named Athens in her honor.
And this wasn't just a divine squabble. It says something about Athens itself.
Absolutely. It perfectly encapsulates the city's identity, or at least how they wanted to see themselves. Poseidon offered military might and naval power of the sea. Athena offered sustainable prosperity through agriculture, the olive tree. The Athenians chose the olive. It's a fascinating aha moment about how a city defined itself through its values, prioritizing peace and long-term sustenance over sheer power, at least in this foundational myth.
How did Poseidon take losing?
Not well. He was a notoriously sore loser. According to the writer Apollodorus, in his hot anger, he flooded the Thriasian plain near Athens and laid Attica under the sea. Or, alternatively, he cursed the city of Athens to never have enough water, an etiological myth explaining Athens' historical water supply problems.
So he threw a tantrum. But was he still worshipped there?
Oh, yes. Despite his defeat, Poseidon was still worshipped in Athens, particularly at Colonus, where he was known as Hippios, horses. And the Erechtheum, that unique temple on the Acropolis, was actually shared between Athena and Poseidon. It supposedly housed a saltwater well and a trident mark on its floor, believed to be left by Poseidon during the contest. It's a testament to the enduring respect they held for him, even as a rival god.
Now let's go back to that incident with King Laomedon of Troy, the one that caused Poseidon's grudge. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. This myth is significant because it established Poseidon's enduring animosity towards Troy. The story goes that Zeus, angered by a conspiracy against him involving Poseidon and Apollo, sent the two gods to serve King Laomedon as punishment. They had to work as mortals.
What did they have to do?
In their mortal disguises, Poseidon and Apollo undertook the monumental task of building the massive, impregnable walls around the city of Troy. A huge undertaking. Upon completion, King Laomedon, who was notorious for his treachery, flat out refused to pay the gods the promised wages.
Bad move. Never stiff a god.
Definitely not. This act of impiety ignited their wrath. In vengeance, Poseidon unleashed a terrifying sea monster upon the Trojan plain, which ravaged the land and snatched away its people. Apollo, meanwhile, sent a devastating pestilence.
So, total disaster for Troy. How did they starve it?
To appease the gods, an oracle foretold that Laomedon had to expose his own daughter, Hesiod, to be devoured by the sea monster.
Horrible. Did she die?
No. Luckily for her, the hero Heracles arrived just in time, saved Hesiod, and in exchange for his deed was promised Laomedon's divine horses.
Let me guess. Laomedon didn't pay up.
You guessed it. Yet again, Laomedon reneged on his promise. This led to Heracles sacking Troy later on, and it sowed the seeds of the city's eventual destruction in the Trojan War generations later. This profound betrayal by Laomedon is a key reason for Poseidon's later unwavering enmity towards Troy.
It's a clear precedent for divine retribution, isn't it? Defying a god leads to long-lasting generational consequences.
Absolutely. The gods do not forget, and they demand respect and recompense. Failure to honor agreements leads to severe consequences. It's a powerful cautionary tale about impiety.
Okay, another story involving broken promises. King Minos of Crete in the Minotaur. How does Poseidon fit in there?
This myth provides another powerful illustration of Poseidon's wrath when promises are broken. Minos sought to legitimize his rule over Crete, so he prayed to Poseidon for a sign specifically, a bull from the sea, promising to sacrifice it immediately in Poseidon's honor.
And Poseidon obliged.
He did. Poseidon granted the request, sending a magnificent white bull up from the waves. However, Minos, captivated by its splendor, decided it was too beautiful to sacrifice, so he kept it for his own herds and sacrificed a common bull from his own stock instead, a clear act of deceit towards the god.
Uh-oh, Poseidon wouldn't like that.
Here he did not. This act of impiety deeply angered Poseidon. In retribution, the sea god inflicted a terrible and bizarre punishment. He caused Minos' wife, Queen Pasiphae, to develop an unnatural and overwhelming erotic desire for the divine bull.
For the bull. Seriously.
Seriously. To fulfill her monstrous longing, Pasiphae sought help from the ingenious craftsman Daedalus. He constructed a hollow wooden cow covered in real cowhide, allowing Pasiphae to conceal herself inside and mate with the bull.
That's deeply disturbing.
It is, and from this unnatural union was born the Minotaur, a creature with the body of a man and the head of a bull. Minos, disgusted and ashamed by this monstrous offspring, ordered Daedalus to construct the elaborate labyrinth to imprison the Minotaur.
This is a profound illustration of divine retribution for human hubris and broken promises, isn't it?
Absolutely. Poseidon's punishment by twisting desire and creating a monstrous offspring demonstrates divine manipulation directly impacting the mortal realm in a very personal psychological way. It shows that divine anger can manifest in highly personal and psychologically devastating ways, with lasting societal consequences, like the tribute Athens later had to pay to the Minotaur.
Let's shift gears slightly.
Yeah.
Poseidon also played a role in the Gigantomachy, the war against the giants.
Yes, an active and crucial role. The Gigantomachy was that epic war between the Olympian gods and the giants, basically a conflict that determined the ultimate cosmic order, a struggle between established order and primordial chaos. Poseidon was essential in upholding the Olympian side.
What did he do?
In this conflict, Poseidon famously confronted the giant Polybotes. He pursued Polybotes through the sea until the giant reached the island of Kossus. Then, displaying his immense power over both the earth and the sea, Poseidon broke off a massive fragment of the island with his trident.
Just ripped off a piece of an island?
Apparently so, and hurled it upon Polybotes, burying the giant beneath it. Some accounts state that Polybotes lies beneath Kossus itself, while others identify the fragment as the nearby island of Nisyros, with the giant's fiery breath causing its volcanic activity.
So that again reinforces his Earthshaker power.
Exactly. His active and decisive role underscores his fundamental importance in upholding the Olympian cosmic order. His method of defeating Polybotes powerfully reinforces that Earthshaker epithet and his dominion over geological forces in the sea. His powers were truly essential for maintaining stability in both the divine and natural worlds. He was a key player in keeping chaos at bay.
Okay, one more major myth involving his offspring, the Alodo, Otis and Ephialtes.
Ah, yes, the giant twin brothers. Their myth offers a compelling cautionary tale about hubris, even for those with divine parentage. These formidable giants were the sons of Poseidon and a mortal woman named Iphimedia.
So demigods, but giants.
Right. As they grew, Otis and Ephialtes became incredibly powerful and incredibly arrogant. They believed themselves invulnerable, proclaiming that neither God nor man could kill them. Their immense strength and overinflated sense of power led them to challenge the supremacy of the Olympian gods directly.
How did they challenge them?
Audaciously, they schemed to abduct Olympian goddesses. Otis wanted Artemis, and Ephialtes set his sights on Hera. In a display of their might, they even managed to imprison Ares, the god of war, in a bronze jar for 13 months.
They captured Ares.
Yeah. Their ultimate act of defiance was an attempt to reach Mount Olympus itself by stacking two mountains, Ossa and Pelion, on top of each other, trying to create a literal stairway to heaven.
So how were they defeated, if they were invulnerable?
Their downfall came not from direct combat with the gods, but cleverly, from their own arrogance and internal conflict. In one version, Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, intervened. She appeared before them disguised as a beautiful white doe and sprang between the quarreling brothers.
A distraction.
Exactly. Both Otis and Iphialtes, distracted by their dispute and eager to strike the doe, threw their spears. In their haste and misjudgment, they missed the animal, but instead impaled each other, fulfilling a prophecy that they could only be killed by mutual fratricide.
Killed by their own hands, essentially.
Precisely. It serves as a powerful cautionary tale about hubris. Divine parentage does not grant impunity for challenging the cosmic hierarchy. Excessive pride often leads to self-destruction. Their unique invulnerability was ultimately overcome by psychological manipulation, leading to their own fatal mistake. Defiance of divine order, regardless of strength, is ultimately futile in these myths.
Poseidon's influence seems evident in so many other myths too, doesn't it? Just briefly, things like Scylla's transformation.
Right, the beautiful nymph loved by Poseidon, tragically transformed into that terrifying sea-monster. Usually blamed on the jealousy of his wife, Amphitrite, or sometimes the sorceress Circe, a poignant illustration of divine rivalries and their devastating consequences on mortals.
And Amy Mon, the one he rescued.
Yes, Amy Mon, a mortal woman he rescued from a pursuing satyr. Following their encounter, Poseidon supposedly created life-giving springs for the arid region of Argos as a reward for her, and they had a son, Nauplius. This shows a more benevolent, life-giving side to his power, connecting him to vital water sources for human communities.
Bellerophon, the hero who rode Pegasus.
Another reputed son of Poseidon, famously credited with capturing Pegasus and slaying the monstrous chimera. While Poseidon aided his son, Bellerophon's eventual hubris trying to fly Pegasus to Mount Olympus led to his downfall. Again, a reminder that even divine parentage doesn't grant impunity from challenging the gods.
And Theseus, the hero of Athens. We mentioned the rumored parentage.
Right. The story that his mother, Aethra, slept with both King Aegeus and Poseidon on the same night allowed Theseus to claim a unique divine heritage. It connected him to Athens' foundational myths and blurred the lines between mortal and divine lineage.
Orion, the hunter who walked on water.
Another son of Poseidon. Granted that amazing ability, but his boastfulness apparently incurred Gaia's wrath, leading to his death by a giant scorpion, though he was placed among the stars.
And Chimaeus, the warrior transformed from Canis.
Back to that powerful story. After the rape by Poseidon, Canis wished to be transformed into an invulnerable male warrior, Caeneus, a complex narrative about trauma, power, and identity.
So, looking at all these diverse myths, what's the common thread?
I think the common thread is how divine will, desires, and retributions are inextricably linked to mortal destinies and the very fabric of the world. The gods' personal actions, their loves, their anger, their jealousies, have tangible and lasting effects on the mortal realm, shaping heroic lineages, creating monsters, and altering the world itself.
Okay, let's shift focus now to how Poseidon was actually worshipped. His profound significance in ancient Greek life seems evident in the widespread veneration he received, right?
Absolutely. The elaborate cult practices dedicated to him and his enduring cultural influence across various domains show just how important he was. His worship was extensive, spanning across mainland Greece and extending into southern Italy, Magna Graecia.
Where was he particularly honored?
He was particularly honored in the Peloponnese region, sometimes even referred to as the residence of Poseidon, and in the Ionic cities along the coast of Asia Minor. The naming of cities such as Potidea in the north, Aegean and Poseidonia, later Paestum in Italy, directly attest to the deep significance of his cult. Poseidon was a common name for coastal places associated with him. Were there major temples or sanctuaries? Oh yes. Major sanctuaries like the iconic Temple of Poseidon at Cape Sunion, perched dramatically atop a cliff overlooking the Aegean Sea. It symbolized his power and Athenian reverence and served as a crucial point of maritime defense and navigation. Just stunning.
I've seen pictures. Breathtaking. Where else?
In Corinth, his cult was strongly related to the Isthmian Games, one of the 4 great Panhellenic games. Pylos, where we saw that early Mycenaean evidence, considered him their principal god, and his cult was introduced to Ionia by Achaean colonists from there.
And new discoveries are still being made?
Yes, recently. Archaeological excavations at Kleidisamachon in the western Peloponnese have uncovered a monumental temple, about 28 meters long, believed to be part of a famous sanctuary of Poseidon from the 6th century BCE. Shows just how significant his worship could be architecturally.
What about inland areas like Arcadia?
Arcadia boasted numerous temples dedicated to Poseidon, often bearing the surname Hippios, reflecting his strong association with horses in this region, reinforces those ancient terrestrial connections we talked about.
And places linked to political leagues.
Right. At Onchestos in Boeotia, Poseidon had an old and famous festival that included horse racing, and his sanctuary served as the meeting place for the Second Boeotian League, highlighting his role as a symbol of unity. Similarly, Helike in Achaea was home to the famous temple of Poseidon Heliconios, which functioned as the meeting place for the Achaean League.
Even in places where he wasn't the main god, like Argos.
Exactly. Even in Argos, despite losing that patronage contest to Hera, his beloved Amymone supposedly discovered vital springs there. It's a testament to his enduring connection to water, ensuring his presence and worship, even where he wasn't the primary patron. He was relevant everywhere.
So the widespread distribution of his cult sites suggests that practical needs and geography shaped his worship.
Very much so, particularly in coastal regions, maritime cities, and areas known for horses. His role as god of the sea was paramount for seafaring nations, naturally, but his earthshaker and hippios aspects were crucial for inland agricultural or equestrian communities.
So it demonstrates a pragmatic dimension to Greek religion. Deities were venerated based on their relevance to daily life.
I think that's key. It highlights a reciprocal relationship. If you pray to Poseidon and make offerings, perhaps your crops will flourish, or your ships will be safe, or your house won't collapse in a quake. It was practical.
And there were festivals and games dedicated to him.
Numerous festivals and athletic competitions were held in his honor throughout ancient Greece, reflecting the diverse aspects of his divinity and his importance in civic life. These events often included athletic contests and, very notably, horse racing.
The Isthmian Games were the most famous.
Yes, the most prominent, held every 2 years near the Isthmus of Corinth. These games featured a wide array of athletic and musical competitions, including those crucial horse races, directly acknowledging Poseidon's dominion over both the sea and horses. Legend attributed their origin either to the cunning king Sisyphus of Corinth or the hero Theseus.
What about other festivals?
The Panionia was a significant festival for all Ionians, celebrated near Mount Mycale in honor of Poseidon Heliconios. It served as the primary meeting place for the Ionian League, underscoring Poseidon's role as a symbol of political and religious unity for those Greek cities in Asia Minor.
And games specifically for his horse aspect.
Yes, in Arcadia, games known as Hippocratia were held, directly related to Poseidon's cult as the god of horses, further emphasizing his equestrian domain there.
Even festivals linking him to fertility.
Right, like the Haloa, celebrated around the winter solstice, primarily at Eleusis. It honored Demeter, Dionysus, and Poseidon. It included a procession for Poseidon, usually bloodless sacrifices, and famously a body feast, mainly for women. This highlights his older associations with fertility and vegetation, showing the continuity of his diverse powers.
So these festivals weren't just parties, they were rituals reinforcing his specific powers.
Exactly. They were performative rituals that actively reinforced and publicly acknowledged Poseidon's specific powers and domains, ensuring his continued influence over their lives. It was communal affirmation of his multifaceted influence over nature and society.
How did individuals try to appease him? What kinds of offerings and rituals did they perform?
Ancient Greeks engaged in various offerings and rituals to appease Poseidon, seeking his favor for safe voyages, bountiful catches, and protection from the unpredictable forces of storms and earthquakes. Sailors and fishermen especially would offer fervent prayers and sacrifices before embarking on their journeys or casting their nets. Their very livelihood depended on his goodwill.
What was the most significant offering?
Probably animal sacrifice. That was pretty central to Greek worship generally. For Poseidon, typically, horses were sacrificed,
Horses.
frequently by drowning them in the sea. A very powerful, dramatic act, symbolizing his dominion over both the animal, his sacred animal, and the element itself. Bulls were also offered, reflecting their symbolism of strength and fertility. Homer, for instance, describes jet-black bulls being sacrificed to him by the shore.
What about smaller offerings?
Fishermen frequently offered fish, especially tuna, which was a staple of the Greek diet. Seawater and sea salt were commonly poured as libations or left as votive offerings, directly connecting the offering to his domain. Wine mixed with water constituted a traditional Hellenic libation offered to Poseidon on specific sacred days.
And non-perishable things, like little statues.
Yes, votive objects served as enduring dedications. So things like cookies or small statuettes in the form of horses or bulls have been found. Also sculpted or painted plaques depicting him or symbols associated with him left at sanctuaries.
What about rituals beyond sacrifice, just praying?
Ritual practices certainly included prayers, often reciting a multitude of Poseidon's epithets to invoke his specific powers relevant to the request. Regular offerings were key, And some scholars suggest personal connection was fostered through spending time near water, meditation, visualization, paying attention to dreams featuring water, horses, or tridents. Even artistic expression dedicated to him.
So this all reveals that fundamental principle of reciprocity in Greek religion. Mortals offer devotion, expect favor in return.
Exactly. It shows the practical, almost transactional nature of their beliefs. Appeasing the gods was seen as essential for survival and prosperity, especially when dealing with something as unpredictable and dangerous as the sea or earthquakes. It shows the pragmatic and deeply integrated role of religion in their lives.
And he had a significant civic role too, right? Not just worshipped by individuals, but by cities.
Oh, absolutely. A significant civic role in many Greek city-states. In Athens, he was considered second only to Athena in importance, despite losing the contest. In Corinth, in numerous cities of Ionia and Magna Graecia, he was revered as the chief god of the polis, the city-state itself. This widespread civic prominence underscores his critical influence beyond just his natural domains.
And his maritime importance was huge, obviously.
Critical. Greece's extensive coastline and reliance on maritime activities for trade, communication, expansion. It meant that sailors and coastal inhabitants held Poseidon in immense reverence. They constantly sought his favor for safe voyages and bountiful catches. He was widely viewed as the master of the sea, responsible for creating clouds and storms, while also serving as the ultimate protector of sailors. Sacrifices were often made before journeys, a plea for a safe return.
Did he play a role in colonization when Greeks set up new cities?
Yes, a crucial role. While Apollo, through his oracle at Delphi, usually provided the divine authorization for new settlements, Poseidon watched over the colonists during their often perilous journey across the seas. And supposedly, he provided the lustral or purifying water necessary for the foundation sacrifices upon arrival at the new site.
And in warfare, naval battles.
As the god of the sea, his influence extended directly into military affairs, particularly naval warfare. His ability to control the waters and summon storms meant he could dictate the outcome of sea battles, in their view. Ancient Greeks attributed significant naval victories, such as some against the Persians, to his divine intervention. He was deeply integrated into their military thinking and system.
So looking back at everything, his presence really permeated ancient Greek culture, didn't it? Beyond just direct worship.
Absolutely, in so many facets. Literature, for starters. His stories are central to foundational works like Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, where his character drives significant plot lines and defines heroic struggles, especially Odysseus' prolonged journey home.
Hesiod's Theogony gives his origins.
Right. And he appears in Greek tragedies, too, like Euripides' Hippolytus, where that bull rising from the sea sent by Poseidon causes Hippolytus' death, a shocking showcase of his destructive power. Later plays also explored his myths, like ones about Caeneus.
And in ours.
He was a very popular subject in ancient Greek art and sculpture, frequently depicted as that robust, bearded figure wielding his trident, often surrounded by marine creatures or riding his chariot drawn by horses or hippocampi. Vase paintings often show him in action, sometimes chasing women with his trident, reflecting those myths. Famous sculptures like the majestic bronze Artemisian bronze, often identified as Poseidon, capture his imposing presence. And of course, the iconic Temple of Poseidon at Sunion stands as a monumental architectural testament to his importance, still breathtaking today.
And his legacy continued beyond Greece.
It did. His influence extended into the Roman world, where he was identified with Neptune, the Roman god of water and the sea. His name, as Neptune, was later assigned to the eighth planet from the sun, likely due to its deep blue color, reminiscent of the sea.
And the trident symbol is still used?
Yes. The trident continues to be a symbol of naval power in modern contexts, like the insignia of the United States Navy SEALs, for example. It retains that association with maritime strength.
So, summing up his cultural impact.
Well, his myths provided profound explanations for natural phenomena, earthquakes, storms, springs. They justified societal structures and offered moral lessons, however complex. His worship, deeply integrated into daily life, reflected the Greeks' profound connection to their environment and their belief in that reciprocal relationship with the divine. The portrayal of Poseidon as both a protector and a destructive force signifies their acknowledgement of nature's duality, shaping their beliefs, rituals, and their deep respect for the powerful, unpredictable forces that govern their existence. He embodied something fundamental about their world.
We've truly embarked on a deep dive today, haven't we? Uncovering Poseidon's multifaceted identity far beyond his familiar role as just the sea god. We've traced his origins back to the Earthshaker, a primal horse god whose earliest veneration seems tied to the land and maybe even the underworld.
Yeah, it's a much richer picture. We've seen how his iconic trident, and even his sacred animals like the horse and the bull, unify his control over both the fluid depths of the ocean and the solid dynamic forces within the earth itself. It's a far richer tapestry than we often imagine.
What truly stands out, I think, is how the complex personal lives, the rivalries, the desires of the gods, especially a powerful and often volatile deity like Poseidon, had such profound, tangible impacts on the mortal world.
Absolutely. Their whims-shaped destinies, explained natural phenomena like earthquakes or strange births, and fundamentally influenced human society, from the founding of cities like Athens to the prolonged suffering of heroes like Odysseus. Greek mythology wasn't just stories, it was a dynamic system for understanding the intricate, often frightening interplay between divine power and human existence. It was their way of mapping the forces around them.
So, as we reflect on Poseidon's journey, this evolution from perhaps an underworld or earth deity to the majestic ruler of the seas, it raises an important question, maybe for you listening. What other seemingly simple figures from myth or history or even our everyday understanding might hold an entire universe of untold stories and surprising contradictions just waiting for us to, well, dive in and uncover them?
That's a great thought to leave with. We hope this deep dive offered you some fascinating insights, some new perspectives, and perhaps a fresh appreciation for the intricate, sometimes contradictory, but always compelling tapestry of ancient Greek mythology. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the knowledge that surrounds us.